Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Fall 2020 Move-In webinar hosted by Housing and Residence Life and Campus Services with help from parent programs. I see folks are still joining, so I'm just going to wait a few seconds. If you can hear me, please raise your hand so I can see that folks can hear. Thank you. I see about 1,000 hands going up right now. Thank you very much. Let me put those hands down here quick. All right. So as you'll see in the bottom here, we are also live streaming this via Facebook Live at our Tulane Housing Facebook page. If you, for some reason, have issues with Zoom, this is an alternative you can use to watch the live stream of the webinar. And of course, this will be recorded and posted on our website and the parent program's website as well. So as you'll find today, if you've been using Zoom for work or other reasons, usually during Zoom chats, you can see folks and you can speak to them. On a webinar format, your microphones are all muted and chat is disabled between you and the other attendees. If you have questions you'd like to ask, you can put those in the Q&A and we'll answer those after the webinar is finished, either on our FAQs page on the Move-In website or another format. We did review about 2,000 questions that came in as part of your registration and have tried to answer all of those that we can in this webinar. So please know that we did read those questions and attempt to answer those. And like I shared, this webinar is being recorded and it'll be on the parents website and the Housing and Residence Life website. Before we get started with introductions, I just want to thank everyone for being here today. I know that y'all have been waiting for information about fall move-in pretty much right after we announced that the university would reopen for classes on August 19th. So I thank you for being patient. We recognize that we're in uncertain times right now and that these times have impacted your families and your students in various ways. And so none of the decisions that we've been making about fall have been in a vacuum. We recognize that y'all have probably been impacted by our current situation globally. So just know that we are taking those impacts into consideration when we plan for the fall. The decisions we're going to announce today and those we announced in our email that went out last week were not made easily or quickly. We've been making them in coordination with campus partners. And we're focusing our efforts on making sure that students are safe when they come back to campus and stay safe while they're here on campus. So just know that all those all the efforts are being made to make sure that your students are being safe while they're here on campus. You'll notice that a lot of things about move-in are different for those of you who have done move-in on campus before, and a lot of things we're doing for the first time. Again, the reason that we're making changes and the reason things are different is because we're trying to make sure that your students are safe when they're here on campus and while you're here for move-in. So with that, we'll do a few introductions. This is our plan for the webinar today. We'll introduce ourselves, the two hosts today. We'll talk about some critical dates that we sent out last week, and then walk through things to do before move-in, and then while folks are on campus for move-in days. My name is John Tingley. I'm the Associate Director for Facilities within Housing and Residence Life at Tulane. I'm responsible for coordinating move-in every year in the fall with, of course, our many campus partners here at Tulane. Jay, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, I'm Jim Albro. I'm the Director of Mailing Services as part of the Campus Services Unit here at Tulane University. We deal with all the packages, incoming mail, and so forth throughout the year, and especially here at Move-In.
Thank you, Jay. All right, so here are some critical dates. These are the same dates that we shared on our message that went out to students and families last week, I believe on the 18th. Students should have already received their assignments from Housing and Residence Life. That was sent either late last week or early this week. That assignment email for first-year students contained their assignment for the first time, and for returning students contained their assignment that's a confirmation of the assignment they already chose. That email also included information about how to choose a time slot. I'm also going to walk through how to choose a time slot live on this webinar, so you'll get to see what students see when they go in to choose a time slot, just so you know exactly what that looks like. In early July, shipping information will be sent to students, and Jay will go over what that shipping information will contain and some more information about that shipping packet and that information. This shipping window of July 15th through the 31st, that's a critical window for in-room delivery, and we'll talk about what in-room delivery is, but packages need to arrive on campus between the 15th and the 31st to be delivered to a student's room. So that window is really critical. Move-in days for new students, so that includes first-year students and transfer students, are on August 10th through the 13th. And for returning students, upper class students, those days are the 14th through the 17th. We have a break day on August 18th, and then on the 19th, the classes start for campus. So like I said, students receive their housing assignments in June. Just so folks know, those housing assignments take into account their roommate preferences that they made and any room type preferences they made while they were applying for housing. Students should start having conversations with any roommates or suite mates that they have now about what folks are bringing to campus, when they're planning to arrive, and just conversations that roommates should have between each other because they'll be sharing a space for at least the fall semester, if not the entire year. So it's important to start making those connections now. For folks that are trying to pursue a room change, the room change process will start on September 1st. And there's an online form within the housing portal where students can apply for a room change. For move-in, the reason why we have 4 days for each population of students is that we are using a 25% model to allow for 25% of students to move in on campus during each day. And so if you take each day, so if we talk about August 10th, 25% of the capacity for each building has time slots available for that building. So if we think about Butler Hall as an example, they have about 250 folks who can live in that building. So for each 30-minute time slot during each day, about 4 students will be moving into Butler during that 30-minute arrival window. And a lot of questions have been asked about the 30-minute time frame. That 30-minute time frame is an arrival time frame. So that's when we'll want you to arrive at the check-in station for move-in. It does not mean that each student has 30 minutes total to move in. It just means that's when we want you to arrive to control traffic on campus. Students should be making travel arrangements before their time slot begins. And the reason for that is because we'll have to have them arrive earlier to go through the arrival center, which I'll talk about in a second. When students choose a time slot, they'll notice that roommates can't select the same exact time slot. The reason for that is we don't want 2 students moving into the same room at the same exact time. So we thought it was important to put that restriction on the time slot selection process. Up until July 31st, students who have selected a time slot already can go back and cancel a time slot if they need to. Students can cancel at any time up until July 31st. However, new time slots will not be created. So if students go back and cancel now, they're going to see that the availability of time slots is less than there was when they first selected their time slot, because almost half of students who live on campus have selected a time slot already. As I mentioned before, room changes will happen in September, starting on September 1st. If someone is trying to pursue an emergent room change for an emergency reason, they should wait to select a time slot until they have a final room change offer. But again, our room change process starts in September, and that's when folks should be planning on trying to pursue a room change if it's not an emergency reason. All right, so I'm going to stop sharing this PowerPoint slide for a second and share my screen to do a time slot demo. So bear with me for just 1 second. So for students to select time slots, they do so by logging into the housing portal. And I'm going to do that by going to housing.tulane.edu/portal. And for this demo, I've given myself a student classification and a student room assignment. So this will look virtually very similar to how a student would go into our portal. So I'm going to log in here. Okay, so I've logged in using my Tulane credentials that were already saved on this session of Chrome. That's why you didn't see a login page. Once I'm logged into the portal, I'm going to go to the move-in time slot section. The first page explains how time slots were created and how they'll function. It explains to not make travel arrangements until a time slot has been selected. Once a student has selected their time slot, they'll want to plan their travel to arrive 48 hours before their time slot begins. And I'll explain more about that in a second, but it's really so that students have time to be tested at the arrival center and get their results before they arrive on campus. Later in the summer, we'll send an additional time slot confirmation message that will contain a contactless check-in code. I'll explain more about that process in a minute, but they'll want to watch out for that confirmation later in the summer. So after I read that information on that entry page to the time slot process, I'll click Save and Continue. And then I'm brought to the time slot selection page. It's important for students to select the correct process. So I'm a first-year student. I'm going to select the first-year process. And then I see that on the 10th, I've got some time slots available to select. If I go and select 11:30 on the 10th, it's going to ask me if I want to book that appointment. I do. I'm going to select yes. So then it tells me that I have a time slot booked for Warren Hall at 11:30 on August 10th. If I made a mistake and want to cancel my time slot, I just click cancel there. It's going to ask me if I want to cancel, and I'm going to click yes. Once that's done, students should click Save and Continue. It'll bring them to a confirmation page letting them know that their time slot has been confirmed. They'll also receive an email confirming their time slot has been selected as well. That's the last thing they have to do if they're good with that time slot. So I talked about the arrival center a little bit. Again, once students select their time slot, they should plan their travel to arrive 48 hours before their time slot begins. Again, that's because the plan is to test folks centrally at this arrival center, have them wait at this hotel for their test results, and then come to campus once they receive a negative test result. There are lots of questions around, what if there's a delay getting to New Orleans? Will that impact my move-in time slot? Our priority is to make sure folks are tested. So if their test results are delayed because they got to the arrival center late, we'll find a way to accommodate folks close to their arrival time slot if for some reason there was a delay. There's also been questions about who else may be tested at this arrival center. Right now, the plan is to test only students. That may change. We're still figuring out details with Campus Health and the university around some more information about this arrival center. That information will be sent soon. What we do know is that this arrival center will be at a downtown hotel that has capacity and ballroom capacity to do a lot of testing while still following social distancing guidelines for COVID-19. Some more information will come out to folks soon. There will also be an offer for discounted hotel rates at this location or nearby location to accommodate folks to stay close by this arrival center before they go to move in on campus. But again, that we have limited information right now from Housing and Residence Life. More information will be announced soon about this arrival center. Folks also asked in the questions ahead of the webinar about what they should bring to campus. So because we have a ship to room program, we prefer to call it things that you should ship to campus. So you'll see sheets, linens, blankets, towels, clothing, storage bins, potentially hangers, organizers, any electronics that you can ship. Those are all things that could be shipped to campus ahead of time. And again, we'll talk more about that shipping program. We do have a partnership with OCM, who sells linens and other room decor. Anything bought from OCM also gets shipped to campus by the deadline and into student rooms. You'll notice that we call out that twin sheets are for students who live in Sharp Hall. That's because that's the only bed on campus that's a twin size bed because of the makeup of those rooms. Every other bed on campus is a twin XL sheet, and those are available at many different retailers, both through OCM and lots of other online retailers. When students come for move-in day, they'll want to bring a limited amount of items, and we'll explain more about that, why about that in a second. But really they'll want to bring the clothing that they're wearing, the clothing they'll need to stay in the hotel before they arrive on campus, and then any necessities that they need for their trip, whether it's medications, toiletries, valuables that can't be shipped, and other things like that. Jay will touch on things that we don't want shipped, but obviously liquids and gels like laundry detergent are both heavy and can cause leaks inside a shipping container, so those should not be shipped with other items before you come to campus. For folks who want specific measurements for room decor, we're not able to offer specific measurements for every single room on campus. And so if you need to know specific measurements in order to order room decor, you should wait on ordering that decor until after students are in their room and can provide specific measurements themselves. And there are other things that you should wait then to get before or after you come to campus. Jay, do you want to touch on packages?
Oh, sorry. Yeah. Okay, so packages. So this year, there will be no limit on the amount of packages that can be delivered to the rooms. So ship what you want. I'll be showing you the packet in a little while, and we will be providing some shipping labels that you'll need to put on your boxes that you send. These aren't prepaid labels. They're labels that will help us as far as receiving and organizing for the room delivery process. Key piece is that the packages must arrive in New Orleans between July 15th and July 31st. Also provided in this shipping packet, we do have a calendar that also gives you guidelines based on your region of the country, when you should ship those items, and kind of a deadline of when you should get them shipped by in order to make it within that time frame window. Packages can also be shipped directly from retailers if you're ordering them, or you can ship from items from home. We prefer, the preference is to use FedEx or FedEx Ground, as we have special arrangements with them and working with our vendors to get those into the room. But we can accept from any carrier if you prefer a different carrier. So students are going to be responsible for the cost of shipping these items. The delivery into the rooms is provided at no cost. As part of the shipping packet that's coming, we will have a coupon for FedEx shipping. I'm still waiting the final details on it, but it will offer you some discounted shipping and packing options from FedEx during that. We'll go ahead and I'm going to share my screen so I can show you, give you a sample of what the packet's going to look like. So basically the packet will come to the mail. It'll be mailed to the student's permanent home address. It will also be sent to the student's Tulane email account. This year, both new entering students and returning students will get a packet physically mailed to them at their home address, as well as the email. It will contain a basic letter with some basic information. Most important on this is it will identify your Tulane mail code. For new students, you'll be issued a mail code. This will be your mail code for the entire time that you're at Tulane. This mail code will need to be in the addressing of anything you sent. It's basically a means of us to easily identify you and being able to store and locate your item easily by a number. So you will have that mail code for the entire time you're here. During the ship to school process, we will have a special address that's used in order to help us work with the carriers so that we can funnel all of that into the stream for delivery to rooms. At the end of that window on July 31st, the student will be emailed their permanent address, which will be slightly different, but the mail code will remain the same. The permanent address will be what you will use for anything that you ship after you've moved in, any things you may have forgotten or decide that you need, or anything that you would want to ship to school during throughout the rest of the year. So we do some, like I said, it's going to have some very basic instructions. about packing up boxes and some of the limits. We're asking no boxes larger than 20 by 20 by 20, and boxes should not weigh over 45 to 50 pounds. We recommend using a strong shipping rated box. These are available at most retail locations, and FedEx offices especially cater to these shipping type boxes. As far as in-room delivery, if you're ordering from a vendor, we realize if you're ordering from Bed Bath & Beyond or Amazon or so forth, you won't be able to put the labels on the boxes, and that is okay. We have a process for that. As we receive those items from vendors, Tulane Mail Service will be able to tag those with the appropriate room label, so that they will work their way into the process to get pre-delivered to the rooms. We also provide some packing guidelines as far as talking about boxes, some things that you'll want to pack or not pack in the case of like you'll need to have you don't want to have your ID cards. You don't want to pack those if you've already got an ID card. New students, of course, you'll receive your card actually when you check in. We just talk about liquids, laundry detergent, soap, and so forth. I think this is something better ordered after the fact once you're here. If you're ordering it through Amazon and so forth, that way it's not included with things that you're shipping, clothes and so forth, because those will tend to split open in transit, and then it kind of makes a big mess. So this is an example of the calendar you'll get with the country sort of divided into the sort of 3 zones: the blue zone, yellow zone, and green zone. And that kind of tells you when you can ship to arrive within our window of the 15th through 31st. Just figure out your state you're shipping from, and then you'll see if you're in the blue, yellow, or red. And of course, it shows you that window up until the deadline. So for example, blue can start shipping anytime from the 9th, and basically they have up until about July 23rd would be their deadline to get things shipped, to make sure that we make it in the window by the 31st. So anyway, so these are sort of a sample of the labels you'll get. You'll get several sets of labels within the packet. These are peel and stick labels that will be in the packet. We ask you to put them on all 4 sides of the box. As you see, you'll have 4 labels per box. It's going to highlight your last name, your mail code. It's also going to have your residence hall as well as your residence hall room number on them. This is just going to help us to organize them and sort them so that we can get them into the rooms efficiently. If you need more labels than what are included, you are perfectly welcome to duplicate these. You can copy them as many times as you want and use those on boxes. Like I said, the student will also get an online version of this packet that they will be able to print out, and it will have these label sheets as well. Okay, I think that pretty much covers the packet, and I'll turn it back over to John.
Thank you, Jay. We had a few other questions about packages come up while you were presenting. For folks who are local and don't want to ship because obviously you're local, mail services can accommodate bringing those packages to campus during the arrival window of July 15th to July 31st. And Jay, the way they do that is by contacting you directly at mailbox@tulane.edu, correct?
Correct. If they contact us, we'll set up a date and time for them to arrive between that 15th and the 31st. And we'll take those items in, tag them, and they'll get into the in-room process.
Thank you.
The location of where they can drop those off at that time.
Okay, thank you. There are also questions who are returning students and use USS, our approved storage vendor for storage. Folks who use summer storage through USS at the end of the spring semester will have their packages delivered directly to their room in addition to the packages that they mail. So if you're a returning student and you stored with us and you also use the ship to room program and get everything here before July 31st, all of those items will go into your room ahead of movement. Again, we're using this program because we want to limit how many places a student has to go on campus and interact with folks and possibly cross paths with someone who may unknowingly have the virus. Obviously, we're doing tests and also make sure that it doesn't happen, but we want to make sure that we limit the interaction between our students and other folks as much as possible to prevent the spread of the virus. And one of those things is to make sure packages arrive before students get to campus. We also had lots of questions about the arrival center, about what happens if students test positive. Are you supposed to stay at that hotel? Housing and Residence Life doesn't have answers to all of those arrival center questions. That's being coordinated at the university level and with campus health. Answers to those questions will come out soon, and that location will be at a hotel downtown. Jay already did the shipping packet, so that's wonderful. So let's talk about move-in days. So I learned best by looking at a timeline. So I'm sharing a little timeline overview with y'all. So students are selecting their time slots right now. We had questions about when students can go select their time slots, and that process is live for everyone right now in the housing portal. The only exception to that may be for transfer students. There are a small number of transfer students who are going to be living on campus with us in the fall. We are developing additional time slots for them within social distancing guidelines, and that process will be announced to them shortly. But everyone else should be able to go in and select a time slot right now. Over half of our students have already selected a time slot. Again, you should make travel plans to arrive 48 hours before your time slot begins to allow for testing time for students. You should ship packages between the 15th to arrive between the 15th and 30th of July. You will arrive in New Orleans 48 hours before your time slot begins. We will send, again, that move-in pass. It says print here, but you may be able to just show that virtually on your phone. More information will come out about that move-in pass shortly. And then you'll check in on campus and plan for your guest to leave campus by 6 p.m. each evening so that we can plan for folks to arrive for the next day for their move-in day. I'll touch more on that specifics about what guests will do on campus in a second. So I'm going to go through a visual description of this right after this slide. But for folks who know Tulane's campus, we have a main thoroughfare for New Orleans called Claiborne Avenue at one side of campus, and then St. Charles, which is another main thoroughfare, but has more traffic restrictions on the other side of campus. So our plan is to guide folks via Claiborne Avenue to Ben Weiner Drive on the side of campus where the football stadium is, because that allows for a lot more control of traffic and a large number of cars on that side of campus. So folks will proceed to the intersection of Ben Weiner Drive and Claiborne Avenue, and obviously we'll give instructions for how to get there. There'll be a check-in station in front of the Riley Campus Recreation Center. We will scan your move-in pass, which will come in the form of a QR code, and that'll either be digital or printed, and we'll talk about that or send more information about that later in the summer. And then hand you a move-in packet. So our check-in is nearly touchless, but not entirely touchless. So we'll scan you to check in instead of swiping a card, and then everything for check-in will be inside that student's check-in envelope, including their splash card and any other check-in information. We'll then proceed around the corner to park in our DeBall parking structure. And then once they've parked, they can proceed to go check in at their room using the access that they have in that check-in packet, whether it's a key or their splash card. Vehicles can stay parked in the DeBall parking structure until 6 p.m. and then after that we'll have to move out so that the next day students can then arrive and park in that structure. So if we look at this process visually, I talked about Claiborne Avenue, that's that highway right there. And this is Ben Weiner Drive. This is the entrance on the stadium side of campus. Folks will drive down Ben Weiner Drive, and then they will take a right turn to get to the Riley Campus Recreation Center. The plan is to have our check-in tents at that location to allow for check-in. We'll then continue down Janet Illman Way and circle around to park in the DeBall parking complex. So you'll see that's a pretty short loop for check-in. After dedensifying campus by 25% for each day and then limiting it to 30 minute arrival windows. The number of cars per each check-in window is about 20 to 25 cars. So this should be a relatively easy, quick way to get checked in and access to a student's room. They just need to then walk to their residence hall after that from the DeBall parking complex. For folks who do have accessibility issues, we will have a plan for folks who need transportation to their hall, but most folks will be expected to walk to their building. Our campus is very small, and it's not a long walk to our residence halls. Like we shared in our message that went out earlier in June, we, for health reasons, expect that students have no more than one non-Tulane guest accompanying them on campus. That could be a parent, another family member, a friend, but we're limiting students to bringing only one non-student guest with them for move-in. That person can come with them in the queue for check-in. They can walk with them to their room, help them set up their room. They just need to leave campus by 6 p.m. so we can clear campus and get ready for the next day. There's no time limit as far as how long that guest can be in their room. The reason we're only allowing one person is we want to make sure that our ratio is still within state, city, and recommended guidelines for social distancing, and trying to manage our students' exposure to people who are from off campus and are here for a limited amount of time. So that's the reason why we made that decision. We're also asking that students bring no more than 2 pieces of luggage and 1 carry-on type item with them, for obvious reasons, right? Like folks are walking from DeBall parking complex to their building, and we don't want them having to struggle carrying pieces of more than these pieces of luggage and carrying items to their building. If there are folks who are facing unique circumstances and need exceptions to this, they can contact us at housing@tulane.edu, particularly for folks who are traveling internationally. There obviously may be some reasons why they can't exactly meet this guideline, and we're happy to have a conversation about that with individuals who need assistance. For folks who have moved in on Tulane's campus in years past, we usually have about 200 to 300 move-in volunteers on first-year move-in day to assist with move-in. I think for obvious health reasons, we don't want to expose student volunteers to lots of folks from off campus or outside of the state during move-in, so we will not be coordinating the Tulane move crew this year to have student volunteers around students when they move in. I know that that is a huge change for our move-in operation, but we think it's the best choice to keep students healthy. So like Jay said, students should plan to ship as many items as they can ahead of their arrival and bring only essentials with them to New Orleans. Again, leveraging that coupon with FedEx if they're shipping things from home, or leverage shipping discounts to retailers to get things shipped to campus from those retailers instead of shipping them to home and then to campus and having to spend extra money on shipping. We know that shipping is not cheap, so that's why we've pursued that coupon with FedEx and are accepting packages from retailers so folks can ship as many things as they can, leveraging the shipping discounts. Again, there's no limit to how long a guest can be in a student's room, helping them. They just need to leave campus by 6 p.m. And then once a student has checked in, they won't be able to have guests again until the university has determined that it's safe to allow guests in the residence halls. So we've had folks ask, my student is checking in on Monday, I'm their parent, I'm staying off campus at a hotel, can I come back on Tuesday after they move in? And the answer to that is no, primarily because we'll have other students checking in on Tuesday, and we've set up time slots to de-densify campus. So if we allowed folks back on campus, the setup of that 25% ratio won't matter because other folks will be allowed to be back on campus. And we won't be allowing guests back on campus and in the residence halls until later in the fall semester. More information will be addressed at a later date on our guest policy. That is kind of our plan for move-in. There are upcoming webinars that Parent Programs is organized on these topics. That'll be on the Parent Programs website. Those registration links are up now. What I'm going to do now is go through some of the Q&A that's come through. Again, we will address the questions that are reported as part of the webinar on the FAQ section of the Housing and Residence Life website. I'm going to try and scroll through and see if there's anything that I can answer very quickly on this webinar right now because we have some extra time. One of the questions is, what is OCM? OCM is a company who we've partnered with to sell residence hall linens and other room decor. Their URL is linked in the FAQs on the housing website. It's also ocm.com/TLN. That gets you to the Tulane specific webpage for OCM. And they have a lot of products that are available as kind of a one-stop shop for students who want to buy things and get them delivered into their room. There are questions about a requirement to stay in certain hotels for the Arrival Center. Again, information will come out about the Arrival Center shortly, but I don't know that we're going to require you to stay in a certain hotel. It's just that students will be required to pass through that Arrival Center before they can arrive on campus. There are some questions about room dimensions and room information. We do have 360-degree panoramic photos of our spaces on the Housing and Residence website on the hall community pages. Those pages also include some room dimensions and furniture dimensions. And we've been updating those pages to be as descriptive as possible, including descriptions of what type of flooring is in those residence hall rooms and the type of mattresses in those rooms. So please, if you haven't looked at those pages on our website, please check those out. Jay, we've got questions about shipping via vendors that are not FedEx. Again, we prefer FedEx, but we'll accept other vendors, correct?
Right, it's preference. We have some special arrangements with them to kind of get the things into the in-room delivery stream. But we have made arrangements that if you use a vendor other than FedEx, UPS, U.S. Postal Service, we'll be able to receive those as well, and they will get into that process as well. So.
Yep. So people are asking, are elevators going to be available in buildings? Yes, elevators and stairs will be available in buildings. There will be signage posted about the guidelines that folks need to follow as far as elevator occupancy and room occupancy, and we ask you to follow those guidelines. You should expect that they're in line with the same guidelines that most cities and states have been posting about occupancy of elevators, stairwells, and other general spaces. We have some more questions about exactly how the testing process will work at the Arrival Center. Again, more information will come about the Arrival Center shortly in detailed form. But the general sense is that folks should arrive 48 hours before their time slot in New Orleans, and then go to the Arrival Center. That more information will be shared about that center. The reason it's 48 hours is that we want to give enough time to allow for travel time and for folks to get their testing results back, and then proceed to the campus during their time slot. I think the expectation will likely be that folks get tested and then isolate themselves in their hotel until they get their results back. Again, more specific information will come out about that exact process, but I imagine the expectation will not be that you arrive, get tested, and then go hang out in New Orleans and interact with folks in the city between the time when you get your test results. I don't know that that would be wise. Again, some questions about FedEx. They're our preferred vendor, and we have a coupon with them, and that's why we prefer them. Jay, there are some questions about what happens for mail after move-in. Can you talk a little bit about what mail options are available after move-in day?
Okay, well, after move-in day, like I said, the student will get their permanent address on the right around July 31st by email, and that'll be the address that they'll use throughout the year. During the year, you can you have options to order things from retail vendors, send it from home. Anything that's received, the student will get an email notification that we have something for them, and it will tell them where to go. We have a couple of different options on campus, depending, of course, on the size of the item and the quantity of items that we're handling on any given day. We do have parcel lockers located in the lower level of the LBC, which packages will be delivered to throughout the day. This offers a more contactless service as far as the student will be able to go in and either enter a PIN code or that's sent in their email, or they'll actually be able to use their student ID to swipe and open the package locker and retrieve their packages. We also have Amazon lockers located on our campus that can be opted into when ordering from Amazon online. Instead of using your campus address, you will have an option to pick one of the locker banks we have located on our campus. We have 2 locations, and that's another contactless option. Those will be delivered to the Amazon lockers. The student will get a notification when those items are there, and they can go at their leisure to pick them up. Both locker banks are also available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, that the students can go and pick those items up from. Items that don't fit in the lockers, or if we've exceeded capacity, will be at our mail center, which is located in Warren Hall right now. We will practice social distancing as far as lines and so forth, and we will probably be limiting the number of customers at the counter at a time. But this would be, but we will be running extended hours for most of the semester, as well as Saturday hours, to make sure everybody gets a chance to get those packages.
Okay, thank you, Jay. We've got some questions about students who may need to arrive early because they're working in a campus position to prepare for move-in. For those early arrivals, there is a process being devised for those folks, and their supervisory contact will let them know what their plan should be. Clearly, because we want to make a commitment to test every single student before they come to campus, there will need to be some sort of new process for them. But clearly, if they're coming before the 10th, this process may not apply to them. So please make sure that your student is checking their Tulane email so they get up-to-date messaging from their supervisory contact with that organization. And then we have quite a few questions just about what students do after they arrive on campus between their arrival day and the 19th. New students will have orientation activities to do, and I know that team and other partners on campus are planning things to do for folks who, let's say, move in on the first day, and maybe their orientation doesn't start for a little while after they move in. There will be things to do on campus. I don't know that we're going to restrict students from leaving campus. Obviously, we ask that students adhere to guidelines from the city around COVID-19, and we'll have things for them to do while they're here on campus, including dining venues for them to eat at. But there will be things for folks to do when they're here on campus and after they arrive. All right. So I'm going to end the webinar now. Again, if there are other questions that I didn't see in the Q&A or in the pre-webinar questionnaire, we will make sure that we address those questions on the FAQ page on our website. That won't happen immediately, but we'll get those updated as soon as we possibly can, likely by Monday or Tuesday of next week. If there are other questions that you have, I ask that you hold off until we update that website so you can get your questions answered there. Our front desk is being inundated with questions, as you might imagine. So we want the people who have important emergency needs to get through our office to be able to get through and to get those questions answered quickly. Thanks again for joining us today. Again, these webinars are available coming up from parent programs. I do expect that we may host an additional webinar as we have more information coming out about move-in and about the arrival center. So please expect that some information will come out shortly, either via webinar form, in addition to email messaging and on our website. Thanks again for joining us today. Again, this will be recorded. That recording will be sent out in a link format to everyone who registered today. It'll also be on our website and on the parent programs website. Have a great weekend.